Mariella, come on up. You guys, can you welcome Mariella, please? So, she's going to tell a bit of a story from her life this morning. We tell stories from all different places. Sometimes it's someone's testimony. Sometimes it's something that's going on that has to do with what we feel like God's called us to do as a church. This morning's one of those. We have something we call the 5. I hope you could recite those things after you get here, because we've picked 5 things out of Jesus' mission that we believe these are things that we want every person who follows Jesus to have a regular part of their life. 1 hour a day with Jesus, 1 step a week towards someone in love who might not know Jesus, just to love them, be in 1 life group, and then this year is 1 time a month serve in one of our justice ministries, and then this fall will be the 5th one. Mariella has a story about the 1 step a week, and just so you know, obedience is the goal here. Not obedience like yes, but obedience like, okay, I feel like God told me to bring my neighbor cookies, or I feel like God told me to come talk to this person at Starbucks. Their reaction is not the goal. That's up to the Lord. But Mariella has a story about that, and so she's going to share it.
All right. Good morning, Go House. Okay, I'm Mariella. So I work in a hospital, and I have an opportunity to share God's word, but it's not that easy. So it happened that a few weeks ago, I worked 2 days in a row. So I go and they give me a report and say that patient has end-stage pancreatic cancer. Not good. And okay, nothing. I go. I saw him.
Did you say end stages?
Yes. So he wasn't doing well at all. Okay. He didn't look good. But I didn't know him. I had not met him yet. So I go in the room, and yes, he didn't look good. And we exchanged a few words, and then later I saw him sitting. Somebody had helped him sit in a chair. And I walk in the room, and he goes, oh, he groans and moans. Can you help me back to the chair? I said, sure, I will help you. And I had no intentions to share anything. And he goes, I think I'm going to die. And when he said that, something moved me. Mm-hmm. And just for seconds I said, God, do you want me to say something? Mm-hmm. But how do I say it? And I helped him back to the bed, and I said, Mr. Lee, his name, I'm going to ask you something directly, because I don't know how else to ask you. And he looked at me puzzled. Mm-hmm. And I said, okay. And said, do you know where you're going to go when you die? And that's not a question that it's easy to ask. It just came out of me. And he was even more puzzled and said, no.
You don't normally do that. That's not your thing that you do all the time.
No,
right.
No, I don't do that.
Right.
I'm not supposed to do that at work. And
don't tell anyone this story.
So he looked at me. So now I said, okay, I'm going to tell him. And I said, I'm only asking you this because I'm Christian. Mm-hmm. And what Bible tells me is that when I breathe my last, God will give me a new body, mm-hmm. a resurrected body. And there will be no shame, no fear, mm-hmm. No pain, no sorrow, no suffering, all of that. And he was listening. And I look at him and he goes, then I want to die. Oh boy! So he was really listening. He got it for just these few seconds, and then he goes, "Can you guys give me a pill?" I said, "No, I'm not talking about this. I'm not. Okay. I just want to tell you what I know."
He was ready to go.
He was ready to go. Then he interrupts me and says, "I'm sorry. Can you stop for a moment? I'm gonna call my girlfriend." He was Korean. He's Korean, and he said, "I'm not sure that I'm getting everything. Can you please tell her?" I said, oh my, I have to tell this over the phone. So he dials the girlfriend. So I talked to her and I explained to her and I told her, I try not to miss asking patients these questions because it's about eternity. It's very important when you end up. And she goes, yeah, thank you very much. Thank you, yes, good. So I finished the conversation with her and I turned back to him and his face was full of hope. It's not what I saw when I entered. Mm-hmm. And he started asking questions. And then I couldn't sit more with him because then it's going to be my talking, and I didn't have anything more to say to him. I was just listening. I was tending to him, to his needs. And later, girlfriend comes and she said, "Oh, I introduced myself. Oh, I'm Mariella, so-and-so. We talk on the phone. Oh, so you're the nurse that talked to him about receiving Jesus?" I said, "Yes, you got it too." I said, "Yes, that's me." And later, so every time I look at him, his face was different. And he kept doing this, like thanking me. And then he calls me and said, "My daughter and her husband are coming later. Can you talk to them too?" And I said, "Oh, God." I said, "Yes, of course I'm going to talk to them." But then I said, "God, I don't know what you're doing." So later, just to make it short, so later they come and I entered the room and they were happy, they were smiling. So they go to Korean church. But they thanked me a lot. They said, because I missed that, I told him I have cancer too. And when I was telling him that we're going to get a new body. And she said that when you told him that, he was really sold. So next day comes. I happen to work second day, and he will be discharged, sent home, apparently in hospice. And the girlfriend put something in my pocket, and I looked, $100 bill. I said, no. I said, "I'm not taking this. I'm not supposed to, and I don't want the money." And then he goes, "No. After what you told me, now you have to take this money and give it to God." I said, "No, you're going to do that. You're going to take this to your church and give the money to God." And then I said, "But most important, God wants your heart first before he gets your money." And that was the last thing I told him. And then I went on lunch break, and when I came out, he was gone. But so that's my story.
Thank you, Maria. Great job. Thank you. You can continue. Thank you. So here's the lesson for all of us is God may prompt you to say something, to do something with a friend, a neighbor, a stranger, a family member. And it's our choice to get to do that or not. And she didn't have to say yes. And God could have reached this man a different way. And often he does that, but she would have missed out on the joy of being in the middle of what he's doing. And notice that he didn't tell her 7 steps, which ends up coming. He told her 1. And that is really why we call it 1 step. It's like, so, and I encourage you, don't let the 1 steps come to you. Ask the Lord at the beginning of the week, what's my step this week? Let's be conscious with it. And all these things that we do, these 5 things, it takes a lot of time and a lot of effort. It just does. But being a Christian is not easy. There's a quote that I wanted to read you. There's a book called The Art of Neighboring that this quote is from that book. So The Art of Neighboring, that's a great way to get started. How do I get to know my neighbors? How do I do 1 step? Like, it's a really good book, but back to the quote. In this life, we can only do a few things really well. I think it's a good idea to make certain that one of those things is what Jesus says is most important. And we have our own schedules, we have our own time, and I encourage you, as the call goes out to our church to really try and follow Jesus in the ways that he asked us to, in the ways that are best. I encourage you to make time and space to do it, but it's not always easy. So, great. Art of Neighboring is a great place to start. Lastly, this coming Wednesday begins the Lenten season. It's Ash Wednesday. It begins the season of Lent, which is 40-something days before Easter. And it's the church's way, the global church's way of preparing for our hearts and our lives for Easter Sunday. Easter Sunday comes every year. We know what happens, but this is the day. Without the resurrection of Jesus, everything we said doesn't mean anything. And so we celebrate that and we prepare our hearts. A lot of times people at the beginning of Lent will say, I'm going to give up something. I'm going to fast something. I'm going to take something out of my life to remember to pray and to enter into that sacrificial season on Wednesday. So I encourage you to at least pray that morning on Wednesday and just go, God, is there anything you're calling me to do? Is there any way you want me to mark this season differently as I prepare for Easter? And that could be a great way to start. All right, sound good? All right, take out your Bibles. Let's do it. And my timer is a little, could you see what's going on there? If I have 20 minutes, we're all really in trouble right now. 1 Samuel is where we are going to be this morning. And 1 Samuel, we're going to do lots of chapters, but first I wanted to start by bringing this out. This here is from my senior year in college, which was, 10, 15 years ago. And it says Journ, which means this was my binder for my journalism class my senior year, hence Journ. This is a great example of God making all things new, because when I had this class, I was not a follower of Jesus. And so I remembered, I'm like, okay, I remember that class. I know what I was doing. And then here, in a really weird place, I have a note to myself, and it says, final, 11 a.m. Thursday. Talk to him on Wednesday. And if you know me, what you meant, there were some shenanigans up. Like, I was absolutely going to go talk to the teacher and try to weasel my way into a grade. Like, that's 100% what that was right there, because I loved taking shortcuts in college, and God taught me differently later. Here is the new part. It would have been less than 2 years later, I turned my life over to Jesus and we started going to church. And for some reason, this was my first prayer journal. So I have my journalism and my shenanigans, and then it's like my first prayers that I wrote down. And so this is November of 1997. And there are prayers in here. There are answered prayers. There are things that are going on in my life. And I look back and I'm like, man, there's some ups and downs. And that's going to be a little bit of the theme here. Everything from what an incredible blessing this night was, and talking about getting involved at the church. Jen and I were given the great responsibility of helping with the Christmas program. Next journal entry, I haven't been spending enough time with the Lord since I've been following him. Guilt and shame coming in right away. Next journal entry, I'm so thankful for the Lord's work in my life. Next journal entry, I'm really in a stressful time right now, but the Lord's truly at work in my life. I need help. And it's just from the very, very beginning. I share that because of a couple reasons. I have continued to journal my prayers throughout my life. But that is way more sporadic than my spoken prayers when I walk and pray. But they're the same thing. If you were to read this and read a prayer now and read back then, they sound exactly the same as far as my tone and how I talk to God. And the reason is, no one ever told me I wasn't supposed to just talk to him like I talk to anybody else. I never learned any other way. What was modeled to me and what I felt like I was told that he was, I could just talk to him like my Father. And so I've always been very clear and honest and thorough with him in my prayers, and it's been a huge blessing in my life. But I know not everybody's thoughts about God or their upbringing or their personality or their family of origin situations lend them to that. And so sometimes we have to learn that. Part of what we're going to see today with David is we're going to look at a big chunk of scripture and just really skim over the top of the narrative. But what we have Psalms of David that are attributed to these times in his life. So we actually get to, in some ways, look at David's journal and see, how does he talk to God? How is God so constant in his life? How is he honest with the Lord as an encouragement to us? So there are so many ways to treat these chapters. We're going over like 9 chapters. There could be 20 messages on each one of them. But I feel like today, because there's an overall theme, it's basically David is on the run. Everyone say, David is on the run. David's on the run. Saul's after him. That's the overall picture. And so we're gonna bop along the way going, okay, here's a little bit of thing that happened, here's a detail. But then we're gonna read one of David's Psalms that goes with that time in his life. I encourage you to go back and read chapters 18 through 27. That's where we're going. But we're gonna skim over the top and point out a few things along the way. So here we go. And they'll have each of the scriptures that are chosen on the screen as well. So we're gonna start in chapter 18. 1 Samuel 18, verses 1 through 4. If you are new to church, new to the Bible, David is King David, who you've often heard about, who defeated Goliath. That was our last message. That was some time ago once we get here. Saul is the current king. David is the anointed king, but David has not taken the throne yet. And then Jonathan is King Saul, present King Saul's son. After David finished talking with Saul, Jonathan became one in spirit with David, and he loved him as himself. From that day on, Saul kept David with him and did not let him return to his family. He kept him close. And Jonathan made a covenant with David because he loved him as himself. Something to note here, and what you'll see if you go back, I encourage you to go back and read these this week, and with our filter that we're giving, put it in there. You'll notice this relationship between David and Jonathan is the deepest of friendships. It's this commitment, it's this like-mindedness, it's this devotion to one another that's really, really beautiful. In this, it says they make a covenant with each other. Well, what's interesting about that is the covenant would have been initiated by Jonathan because he was the higher in status. So Jonathan initiates a covenant with David. We don't know exactly what, were their terms. What was the deal? Is that basically it was what we do know that came out of that. They devoted themselves to one another like, hey, we're in this together, and you're going to see that throughout. It's really beautiful. So after this, David becomes becomes a big deal. We know he's killed Goliath, but David becomes an important person in Saul's army. And so there are songs that are sung. Saul has killed his thousands, David his 10,000s. Saul doesn't like that because people are talking, he's so insecure. People are talking about David more than him. So you'll see another theme here where Saul is continuing to try to kill David the entire time, never does. So God protects David, but he continues to be in Saul's sights. It's just on and on and on. Often what we see is David helping play music when Saul is tormented by an evil spirit, and then Saul decides to try and kill him with a spear. Saul is horrible at throwing the spear. He's terrible. So this first section, he misses twice. Literally, it's boom, miss. He's terrible at it. So he tries to kill, David escapes, and then eventually David, through some circumstances, David marries Michal, who is Saul's daughter. Good? Yes. David's on the run. There you go, good. Next, and then the scripture says that Saul was David's enemy for the rest of his days. All right, 1 Samuel 19. Saul tells his son Jonathan to kill David. Jonathan says, don't. And once again, Saul tries to kill David with a spear and he misses. He's missed 3 times. Change your weapons. It doesn't work. And then we get to 1 Samuel 19, 11 through 13. So David and Michal are living together and Saul is sending people to go kill David at his house. So 1 Samuel 19, 11. Saul sent men to David's house to watch it and kill him in the morning. But Michal, David's wife, warned him, if you don't run for your life tonight, tomorrow you'll be killed. So Michal let David down through a window. Does that sound familiar? Who? Rahab, yep. And he fled and escaped. Then Michal took an idol and laid it on the bed. That's weird. Why do they have idols in their house? So, David's life, up, down. We don't know if that was Michal's or if it was David's. But it was in the house. And so what you see is a man after God's own heart, never being able to do it perfectly, never being able to get it right completely. And that is for us to look at and go, well, then how does he treat his life with God? So there's an idol in the house. And they covered it with a garment and putting some goat's hair at the head. So they put a fake person in the bed. Clearly David is led out by Michal and he is freed. And this is where we have our first psalm. So Psalm 59. And you'll notice there's a little description that has, over time been put there that tells us that this is attributed to this time in David's life. If you look at Miktam, they say this is a Miktam, and you'll see different titles. There are some we just don't know what that means. It's some description of the psalm, but if you look at it, what does that mean? Some of them we don't. Miktam is one. There's a bunch of different opinions. We're not exactly sure. But they are songs or poems or both. And they are David as an artist pouring out his heart to God. So Psalm 59, verse 1 through 3, and then we have just different selections. So listen to the raw details of this. Deliver me from my enemies, O God. Be my fortress against those who are attacking. Deliver me from evildoers and save me from those who are after my blood. See how they lie in wait for me. Down to verse 13. Consume them in your wrath. Consume them till they are no more. Well, that doesn't sound very loving. It's also battle language. That's what he would have known. This is how battles were fought back then. The New Testament tells us they're no longer flesh and blood. They're in the spirit. Things have changed. But David's like, kill him. But then he comes back like he does many times. Verse 16. But I will sing of your strength. In the morning, I will sing of your love. You are my fortress, my refuge in times of trouble. You are my strength. I sing praise to you. You, God, are my fortress, my God in whom I can rely. Can you take that psalm and pray it over your own life? And does that work? Yes. Yes, it doesn't. Does God being a fortress in your own life, does that mean someone has to be after you and you had to be let down through a window? No, of course not. So something we can do with the Psalms is going, I don't know what to pray, so I'm going to use these. But also what we see is someone going, and again, so often with David, I'd say the majority, not all of them, he'll go, God, what's going on? Kill him. Where are you? You're so good. He often, almost always ends with praise to God in the midst of crazy circumstances. So there's 2 things there. A, he knows God is good. He's known it his whole life, apparently, or at least since he was young. We know that from his story. But B, when we see him praising God, he also knows that's his sustenance. That's his steadfastness. He's like, I have to praise God in the midst of all these things because I know he's good. And this is who I know him to be. So I'm not going to finish my prayer without telling him how good he is. So David's an example in so many ways. It's beautiful. Okay. What do we see in chapter 20? We see David and Jonathan talk about how Saul wants to kill David. They come up with a plan. Jonathan, they have another covenant. And Jonathan, this time it says he makes a covenant with the house of David. So it seems to be broader than just their relationship, but it's, again, just devotion to one another. Saul's mad at his son Jonathan. So guess what he does? What do you think? Tries to throw a spear at him. Did he hit him? Nope. Once again, he missed. He's like, it's so easy to run too. Like, let me get this spear. Like, it's just a horrible plan. I think it's funny. You guys don't, whatever. Maybe it doesn't make it to second service. So, you guys think keep it? Thanks. I appreciate that encouragement. Okay. They have to leave one another and they weep. And in verse 41 says, David wept the most. They have this deep relationship where they might not see each other again. And this friendship could be over, but they are devoted to one another. There's a dinosaur in the kids' room. They're groaning in the spirit. That is so weird. What? It's a call and response across the room. Move, Lord. Okay. 1 Samuel 21. Chapter 21. David went to Nob, Ahimelech, to Ahimelech the priest. Ahimelech trembled when he met him and asked, why are you alone? Why is no one with you? Couple things about Ahimelech. So at the beginning of 1 Samuel, Eli was the one who raised up Samuel in the beginning. Ahimelech is Eli's great-grandfather. So there is a tie-in to the whole story, to the whole relationship, the line of the priesthood. So he's the high priest at this point. He's nervous. He sees David coming by himself. And he knows of whom David, he knows who David is. And he gets really, really nervous and scared because David's by himself. So what we think is going on is he's nervous because he's like, wait, have you separated from the king? If so, I don't want to get in the middle of this because the king's really powerful. Why are you by yourself? Why is nobody with you? Are you on the run? And the answer is yes. But here's where we see David's complicated life, character, and heart and actions. David decides to tell a story that is not true, which we call a... David answered Ahimelech the priest, the king sent me on a mission and said to me, no one's to know anything about the mission I'm sending you on. Is that true? Nope. As for my men, I've told them to meet me at a certain place. Great. Now then, what do you have on hand? Give me 5 loaves of bread or whatever you can find. So again, there's part of this you could argue going, well, David's being shrewd, like he's trying to make his way not be killed by Saul. On the other hand, he's gotten himself into a position where he's lying. So it's complicated. It's not black and white. It's this up and down, like, I think that's okay, but kind of not. And so he's asking for bread. The bread he's asking for, if you go back to our Leviticus series, is the bread that was in the holy place. So that bread was consecrated. It was not supposed to be used by any outsiders, anybody who's not a Levite, anybody who's not a priest. David knows that. He's like, we're hungry. We need bread. And Ahimelech, basically, because David is on assignment from the king, says, okay, go ahead. Take it. If you remember, what does that make us think of in the New Testament? Anyone? Jesus in Luke chapter 6. He asks for, he doesn't ask for. He and his disciples are going and picking grain, and they want to have some of the bread. Jesus is making a point. He goes, well, don't you know what happened to David and his men? They got to eat the bread. And instead of, what Jesus is not doing is going, well, this happened before, so I should get to do it. No, this is where the tie into David and Jesus gets really over and over and over. Jesus is saying, the reason David got to eat bread is because he was on assignment from the king. I am the king. I'm Lord of the Sabbath. The rules, I am the one who made them. I'm not asking because of precedent. I'm asking because of who I am. I'm the king. And so you see this foreshadowing, this beautiful piece where David gets to have bread because he's on assignment, but Jesus comes back and says, you remember that story? I'm the actual real king. It's beautiful. So Ahimelech gives David the bread, and he also gives him a weapon. He gives him Goliath's sword. David goes, there's nothing like it, and so this is going to really help me. What is really weird, and only we have guesses as to why the next thing happens, David's next town he goes to is Gath. What do we know about Gath? That's where Goliath is from. David is now known throughout the land for killing Goliath, and he's like, that's where I'll go, with his sword. So we don't, that is not an easy thing to hide. It's huge. And he's like, I'm going to go there to hide, and it would have been a good place to hide because nobody's going to think he's going to go there. But the people recognize him, obviously. They're like, what the heck? That's the guy. And then David's like, oh no, they found out who I am. And so he starts acting like he's crazy. This is real. This is the story. He starts acting like he's nuts and foaming at the mouth. And so like, get him out of here. He's crazy. So he's saved, but what on earth? Next chapter. No, Psalm 56. Psalm 56 tells us that the title of his, this is when David was seized by the people at Gath. And so here's what he's writing about this time. Also, Psalm 34 goes with this time, but we're not going to read that one. So Psalm 56. Be merciful to me, O God, or my enemies are in hot pursuit. All day long they press their attack. My adversaries pursue me all day long. In their pride, many are attacking me. When I'm afraid, I put my trust in you. In God, whose word I praise. In God I trust, and I'm not afraid. What can mere mortals do to me? Record my misery. List my tears on your scroll. When I'm afraid, I put my trust in you. This is someone who people would say, well, he's probably never afraid. He killed a giant. He didn't act afraid at all. When I'm afraid, I put my trust in you. All my tears are on your scroll. I cry out. He's crying. He's crying tears. A warrior, a leader, like he's crying tears and going, God, you know, every time I've come to you, and I cry, you've saved all those. Like you've seen all those. You've received all of those. So there's incredible vulnerability among like, hey, save me, they're after me. And I'm scared. And I've been scared before, and you've helped me. Please help me again. Is that something we could pray? All right, 1 Samuel 22, verse 1 and 2. So David left Gath, good idea, and escaped to the cave of Adullam. When his brothers and his father's household heard about it, they went down there with him. All those who were in distress or debt or discontented gathered around him. I'm going to read that again. All those who were in distress or debt or discontented gathered around him, and he became their commander. About 400 men were with him. So David is now gathering an army to be with him. That's a smart move. He's preparing for the future. Why is it significant that those are the people that gathered up with him? The discontented, those who were in debt, like the disenfranchised, like what does that make you think of? Jesus. It's another echo going, gosh, there's these crossovers, like Jesus comes as the true king, and that's who was around him. It was all the misfits. Now, this also makes sense. These misfits didn't have anything else to go, and they're like, he could probably help us. They're still with him. Did everyone understand completely what Jesus was doing when they wanted to follow him? No. He's nice to me. No one else is nice to me. Yeah, that's a great start. He gave me food. He's the one who gave us bread. You should come and listen to him. They didn't know everything. Very similar. Okay. And during this time, when he escaped to the cave, Psalm 142 is attributed to this time in his life. I cry aloud to the Lord. I lift up my voice to the Lord for mercy. I pour out before him my complaint. Before him, I tell him my trouble. So David's telling us that he spells out to the Lord like what's going on. I tell him my trouble. I tell him exactly what's on my mind. When my spirit grows faint within me, it's you who watch over my way. What does it mean for the spirit to grow faint within you? What does that mean? What would it mean for someone to go, my spirit's faint within me? What are some ideas you have? Tired? Discouraged? Is that someone who sounds like they're really strong in their faith in God? No. Could it be doubt? Could it be like, where are you? It seems like it because that's what he says all the time. Like, where are you? When my spirit goes faint within me, it's you who watch over my way. Look and see, there's no one at my right hand. No one is concerned for me. I have no refuge. No one cares for my life. Set me free from my prison that I may praise your name. Then the righteous will gather about me because of your goodness to me. It's like, I'm alone. There is no one here. My spirit is faint. But if you help me, I'll tell everybody. Okay. 1 Samuel 23. David fights and defeats the Philistines in a battle, which is great. Now he has 600 men. Saul continues to pursue him, and we have Psalm 54 that tells us this is associated with this time in the desert. Listen to David's honesty again. His same prayers almost every time. Save me, God, by your name. Vindicate me by your might. Hear my prayer, God. Listen to the words of my mouth. Arrogant foes are attacking me. Ruthless people are trying to kill me. People without regard for God. Surely God is my help. The Lord is the one who sustains me. Let evil recoil on those who slander me. In your faithfulness, destroy them. He's still like, let them get away and follow you. And he's like, kill him. I mean, he's just, there it is. 1 Samuel 24. David is now in the desert of En-Gedi, and Saul finds and goes out there. And here's a really interesting story that deserves much more time. We'll just spend a minute on it. So 1 Samuel 24, 3-7. So he came to the sheep pens along the way, and a cave was there, and Saul went in to relieve himself. David and his men are already inside the cave. Saul comes in to use the restroom. David and his men were far back in the cave. The men said to David, this is the day the Lord spoke of when he said to you, I'll give your enemy into your hands for you to deal with as you wish. So then David creeps up unnoticed and cuts off a corner of Saul's robe to basically like mock him and go, I got this close. Afterward, David was conscience-stricken for having cut off a corner of his robe. He said to his men, the Lord forbid that I should do such a thing to my master, the Lord's anointed, or lay my hand on him, for he is the anointed of the Lord. With these words, David sharply rebuked his men and did not allow them to attack Saul. And Saul left the cave and went on his way. Here's the complicated David. Like the ups, the downs, I'm not quite sure. Conflict. Yeah, Megan, did you say that? Yeah, absolutely. This conflict with reading and going, what is an example, what's not? It's hard to tell sometimes. So he cuts off Saul's robe, but then he's conscience-stricken. The Bible talks so often about having a sensitive conscience. A decent way to say that is when you feel nudged by the Lord. That's a sensitive conscience. Pay attention when you feel like God is telling you to do something or not do something. It may not always be him, but we have to keep learning what his voice sounds like. Paul talks about in the New Testament us having a sensitive conscience, us being sensitive and knowing, like Mariella, when the Lord says, yeah, do it now. Like that takes a long time. It's not easy to learn how to hear the Lord like that. And she's been doing this for a while. So he has a sensitive conscience. And there is a good thing where he's like, I can't kill the king. That's the Lord's anointed. That's not something anyone should do. So there's this moment where you're like, yeah, good, David. Yes, don't kill him. And so it's all mixed up in the middle, right? So here's Psalm 57. When he fled from Saul into the cave is our description of this whole psalm. We're going to look at 7-11. My heart, O God, is steadfast. My heart is steadfast. I will sing and make music. Awake, my soul. Awake, harp and lyre. And we have a song called Awake, My Soul. So often worship leaders will take psalms and modernize them for us, which is a really, really beautiful thing. We can do that with our prayers, with our music. Awake, harp and lyre. I will awaken the dawn. I will praise you, Lord, among the nations. I will sing among the peoples. For great is your love reaching to the heavens. Your faithfulness reaches to the skies. Be exalted, God, above the heavens. Let your glory be all the earth. Well, he's in a good mood. He must be safe. Nope. Wow. Is that because he felt good of that decision? Was it before? Was it after? We're not told. We're just told it was during that time period. It's amazing to think about it. 1 Samuel 25, 26, and 27. I'll summarize these quickly. Samuel dies in 1 Samuel 25, and there is a very detailed story that deserves its own time of a woman named Abigail and her son Nabal. Nabal's not a good guy. David and his men come and go, hey, can we have some food and stuff? And he goes, absolutely not. Abigail helps David and his men. She gives him food and stuff, and then she goes, hey, listen, I'll take care of this. She goes and tells her husband, Nabal, who this is and what's going to happen. He gets scared and has a heart attack. After that, David and his men are safe. They get their provisions, things like that. And then David asks Abigail, tells Abigail to become his wife. So now this is David's third wife. Not good. God saved him. Good. Third wife. Well, Deuteronomy 17 says a king's not supposed to have many wives. Well, three's not that many. No. That's not the heart of that. his son will be even more egregious with the riches and with the number of wives. And so David did not set a good example. You're going to see that he continues to struggle as a parent, struggles treating it mildly. But this example he set in his own life, it's like, oh man, you're a man after God's own heart, but that is going to lead you astray. This is not good. There we go. 1 Samuel 26. Another instance where David has a moment. We're like, okay, that's good. He goes into Saul's camp at night with some of his men. David chooses not to kill Saul, but take some of the weapons to prove that he was there. The next morning, he's on a different hill. He's like, wake up, everybody! And there's a guy named Abner. Abner was supposed to be protecting Saul. He's like, hey, Abner, how come I have this? Why didn't you protect the king? You're supposed to protect the king. And so he's saying, you guys are doing a horrible job. I could have killed him, but I didn't. In verse 26, Saul calls out across the way to David. He says, I've sinned. Come back, David, my son. Okay, Saul. Because you've considered my life precious today, I will not try and harm you again. Surely I've acted like a fool and been terribly wrong. Here's the king's spear, David answered. The one that, you know what the spear did? That was thrown at him 3 times if it's the same one. And thrown at his son Jonathan. It's like, here's the king's spear. Let one of your men come over and get it. The Lord rewards everyone for their righteousness and faithfulness. The Lord delivered you into my hands today, but I would not lay a hand on the Lord's anointed. So he has another moment where it's okay. David's having like, okay, you didn't kill him. That's really good. What's the whole purpose in this? Was it to be safe? Was it to show people what you're like? There's all these wonders because he started to have little moments of compromise. Everyone say compromise. Compromise will kill the things that we love about ourselves and our relationship with Jesus. And then finally in 1 Samuel 27, David finally has 600 men at this point. He flees to where else? But Gath again. Like literally, you guys, you're going, okay. But his plan kind of works now because the people in Gath are like, if he's coming here again, the king is like, if he's coming here again, he must be out of the loyalty to Israel. Maybe this could work to our advantage. David, come fight for us. And David's like, good, this is what I wanted. But, so God's saving him, he's preserving him. You're like, okay, I think that's good. But at the same time, David starts to go out on battles throughout the days. He comes back and tells the king of Gath, like, hey, I'm pummeling the tribes of Judah, of Israel. I'm killing my old people. Got it? And he's not doing that at all. He's taking out the Philistines. And so he's winning battles. Okay, I guess that's good. This is kind of weird. And he's lying about it. So that's not good. I don't know, but it's just conflict again. And so David's got himself in this spot where he's just on the run and he's lying to people and he's winning battles. So God's preserving his life. And he continues to cry out to God and go, you're my sustenance. I'm so scared. I don't know what to do. Where are you? Off and on, up and down, like us. I want to put up some more Psalms of David that aren't necessarily during these run times. They could be, but we're not shown where they are. Just listen to some. I'm going to read them really fast. Some of the words. I'm worn out from my groaning. All night I fled my bed with weeping. The next one. Why, Lord, do you stand far off? Why do you hide yourself in times of trouble? If you've ever felt like that, even a little bit, raise your hand. Raise them really high. Look around the room. Why does it have to be like that? It's been like that. Probably it's 3,000-ish years ago. All the way to Jesus, who asked the same thing on the cross. That's the one at the bottom. My God, why have you forsaken me? Jesus uses that psalm because he knew his scriptures on the cross going, where are you? So it's not just David. It's not just us. Jesus himself in his humanity had to use some of those words and go, I don't know where you are. He wasn't on the cross going, I'm fine. Everything's good. I'm not scared at all. Like he was being real and human. And you can only imagine he did that in his prayers. So Psalms, David's heart, David's life. I'm going to do an exercise because here's some things I think. I want to encourage honesty in our prayers with God. I think we all get that, but I want to encourage specific and raw honesty with God in our prayers. Again, there's so much we could talk about in this section of 1 and 2 Samuel. God's doing so much. We learn so much about God's character. Something I want us to sit in and learn and be reminded of today is what he's like when we bring him everything, like David. Okay, so pretend I have, let me see, 5 or 6 people that I'm going to talk to, okay? And each one of these people are in my life somehow, and they've asked me how my interview, I didn't have an interview the other day, my job interview went. Got it? So each one of them goes, hey, how'd the job interview go? And to each person, I'm going to give a different response. The first person, say, how'd your job interview go? Go, ready? Not great. Is that true? Yeah. Next person. How'd your job interview go? Not great. I don't think I did my best. Is that true? Yep. Next. How'd your job interview go? Not great. I don't think I did my best. I forgot a few basic things. How'd your job interview go? Not great. I don't think I did my best. I forgot a few basic things. And I feel really dumb and embarrassed. If you had to guess my relationship with each one of these people, could you have a decent guess? Yeah. Just by how I talk to them? Yep. How'd your job interview go? Not great. I don't think I did my best. I forgot a few basic things and I feel really dumb and embarrassed. I feel like a failure because I can't get a job. This is the reason I don't want to put myself out there. It brings up these feelings that make me want to just run and hide. I feel like the world is laughing at me, pointing their fingers, and I'm all alone. I hate feeling this way. Dang, who's that person? Don't know, but would we guess if you said, hey, who is Chad closest with? Yeah. This person. Why? I feel safe to bring all of me. I have these people in my life. I have great friends like Brian Hill, like so many people in my life that I can be my full self with. But there isn't anyone like Jen. She knows things, and things are reserved for her that no one else gets. She knows how embarrassed I've been by my own self and my own actions at different times in my life. She knows times where I feel super scared and not worthy. She knows times when I feel not capable. She knows times when I feel insecure. She knows when times I don't feel like a man. Like she knows all these times. She also knows the victories. She knows when, okay, I can only tell you this because I don't want to brag, but this is awesome. Like she knows all the things. Because of that, because of her reaction to my bringing it over and over, we have gotten nothing but closer. Because I feel more and more safe, more and more accepted, more and more an example of Jesus' unconditional love for me here on earth. But she's not perfect and she doesn't get everything. God does. Jen doesn't get everything. She gets, in general, yeah, there's nothing hidden, but she doesn't get every tear. She doesn't get every confession. She doesn't get every detail of every tear, confession, excitement, all that. She doesn't get all of it because some of that's just reserved for me and God. Over the years, from journal to now, it is such a beautiful thing to release every single thought, joy, emotion, fear to him in detail. The more detail I get, the more safe I feel that he's not going anywhere, no matter what I bring him. Think about confession. It's one thing to go, Lord, I have lust in my heart. That's great. Yes, good. It's a different one to say exactly what you thought and how you felt when you were looking at somebody, whatever it is. That's a different vulnerability to go, God, here's the whole thing. I'm going to say it out loud. And have him say the same thing afterwards. I forgive you. Let's start again. Lord, I have lust in my heart. I forgive you. Let's start again. Lord, here's all this. I forgive you. Let's start again. But who feels different after those? Me. Because I feel so much more safe. I go, oh my gosh, you are who you say you are. You're not going, I can bring you everything. Jesus really did take care of it on the cross. I'm not scared anymore. I'm not embarrassed anymore. And next time I have something to bring you, I'm going to do it. God doesn't need me to do that. He doesn't gain anything by that because he's not a person like we are. But he senses and feels the closeness. So here's what you might say is, well, he already knows that stuff. Yeah, he does. But here's where the human piece comes in. I relish the times my kids tell me something I already know. I relish it. There are countless times in our life where our kids have told Jen something that they're super excited about. and I take him to the school next morning or have a call with Grant because he's now in college or whatever, and then they tell me something they've already told Jen, and she's told me every detail because we're both the geeks in the same way. Like, oh my gosh, look at what Grant said. I can't wait for him to say it to me. Say it all again. I don't care if I know it. That's not the reason I want you to tell me. I'm not here to get information from you. I'm here to hear you be happy. Say it. You're my boy. I want to hear you say stuff because I love seeing you happy and joyful. Say it. I don't care about the information. Jen gave me the information. I don't want to hear from her. I want to hear from you. You're my boy. He feels that way about you. Imagine that. In the same way, if Grant or Madeline has gone through a tough time and they have something really hard to bring, but I already know it because of Jen, I already have the information, but I want you to sit in front of me and tell me the thing that you feel ashamed of so I can be your dad. Let me be who I've told you I will be. Say all the things. Say it to me so I can sit in front of you and go, it's okay. I love you. I'm not going anywhere. I'm with you. Yeah, this is going to be hard, but I'm not going anywhere. I don't want you to say it again for information. I want you to say it again so you and I can be in the moment. Bring it to me. So for all of us, don't just bring it to your accountability partner. Don't just bring it to the prayer team. Bring it to God so he can be who he said he's going to be. And then you get stronger and stronger and stronger. And like David, in the worst of circumstances, you're like, you're amazing. I don't know where everybody is, but you're going to do it. We just start to develop this trust and bond with him over time because it is a relationship. This is not a transaction. This is not a piece of paper we go, and here's my instructions. It is a relationship, and you've got to treat it that way. So speak to him, talk to him. We're going to practice right now. Worship team, come on up. So we've got songs that we're going to sing, and these are words that you can own. I didn't write these, but I'm going to own this right now because this is how I'm feeling. But I also encourage you, if you want to pray with someone, do it. But this also might be a time where you go, I'm just going to be honest with God right now. Maybe you're great. Let him be your dad and enjoy your joy. Just actually spell it out. Well, I'm kind of good, and here's why. Like, I don't know, it was a good week at work, and I went on a date, and that was cool. And he's going, okay, yeah, what else? Like, don't just bring him your crud. Like, where are you at right now? Just talk to him. Lean in. I'm going to do the same thing. So let's sing, let's worship, get prayer. The prayer team's over here if you need something else. But let's lean in.